Welcome back to LearnPianoLive.com. My name is Jamin, and as you can tell from the countdown clock, the lesson is about to get started. In case you're new with this, there's a few things I'd like to show you to help you throughout the lesson. Today we're writing songs. Everybody, I'm writing songs, you're writing songs, everybody's writing their own songs, and this is truly for all levels, so anyone can write a great song. You are going to write a great song. Depending on your skill level, you may not be able to play the song at the end of the lesson that you've written, but at least you'll have something you could pass off to one of your musician friends and have them play the song for you that you wrote. So that's the goal today, is to write a song and understand how they're put together. You'll hear lots of talk about chords and about keys, so it helps if you have some knowledge about that. But there are really three parts: the chords, the melody, and the lyrics, and you can just do one of those parts. You don't have to do all three of them. And I should also throw in here, there's many ways to write a song. So this is not the right way to do it. This is just a way that I think is easy to get started on and for me to show you how to do on your own. These lessons are always guided and shaped by your questions, and if you're live with us today, there's a couple different ways you can do that. One is in the public live chat, and the other is the Ask Jamin a Question button, where you can ask me a question privately, and I won't share your identity in case you're afraid that your question is stupid. But it's not. If you're in the archives, though, then just open up the survey. At the end of that, there's a place where you can ask your question. I will say I frequently get questions from students in the archives watching a lesson from 6 months ago, and I have no idea what they're talking about. So please try to be as specific as possible. If you're watching this at LearnPianoLive.com, there should be a PDF and an MP3 button right next to this video. The PDF will often have additional video links inside, so you can get more in-depth instruction on each of the topics. And if you're the kind of person who likes to print out the PDF so you can make the same notes on your physical version as I'm making during the lesson, now would be the time to do that. The MP3 is just a play-along track so you can practice more after the lesson. In traditional lessons, a teacher is going to actually present some new concept for maybe 5 or 10 minutes every couple weeks. The rest of the time is going to be spent applying and refining those concepts. Well, here I'm spouting off hours of new information every week, so it's totally unreasonable to expect you to actually absorb all of that. Instead, the goal of these live lessons is for you to find some little nugget of something that makes sense, but is a bit of a challenge, and for you to go practice it, because practice is where all the improvement's going to happen. So don't feel bad if you have to leave the live lesson when you find that little thing that you're going to practice. And of course, if I'm going too fast, you can always rewind the live lessons or replay in the archives as much as you want. If these live lessons start feeling random or meandering, it's because they are, on purpose. So if you're the kind of person who wants classical training with a step-by-step method, then you're going to want to check out Kloppel Academy on the website. It's included in your live lesson subscription, so you can do both or either. And the upper levels are seriously hard work, but it's going to take you all the way from ground zero all the way up to being ready to enter any major music college as a piano major in classical or jazz. And thankfully, I think that's about all we need to cover before the lesson. So if you'd stick around afterwards and fill out the survey, I would love your feedback. But for now, let's have some fun and make some music. All right, and welcome back. Let's do this thing. Let's write some songs here. First, on your PDF, in case you haven't checked this out before, you'll want to read through this page, maybe just take some of the highlights out of it, that you want to check out the 4-chord song. That is enlightening to almost everybody who watches that. And then the rest of these notes here just say, don't try to be too creative or get too intimidated, either one, on your first time through. And there we go, a little bit louder. So for a lot of people, they just try to, they want to write the best song ever the first time through. And they think that the way to make the best song ever is to make the most creative song ever. And the way to make the most creative song ever is to break all the rules ever. And that always turns out terribly. So anyway, just try, if you're one of the creative types, then just try following the rules a couple times and see how that goes. And then, we can bend the rules as we want to once we figure out what bending each of the rules does to the song. And then there's the other type of students who are just terrified of the whole thing and I don't or frustrated, or just I don't know how to write a song. How would I know which one to pick? You're telling me to pick this chord or this chord. How am I going to know? I don't know what they're going to sound like. Just pick one. just pick one. Just jump in and try it out. So the goal is not for this thing to sound great here by the end of the lesson. The goal is for you to have made something and then be able to experience that something and realize, when I did this, this is what happened, this is how it felt, and this is how it sounded. So the goal isn't something great at the end. The goal is an educational experience, so that as you become more and more educated about what things make what types of sounds, you'll be able to write better and better songs, because you'll be able to go, well, I want to kind of make a sad sounding song, and you'll be able to know what tools are going to do that. All right, so having said all of that, let's move on down the page to our Instapop song. This is in the key of C, so that just means that we're going to use all white notes, no black notes for this song. Those are the notes that we're going to use, and if you start on a C, which is always the note right below a group of 2 black notes. There you go. That's going to be a C chord, because every other note starting on C. And in the key of C, C is number 1. In the key of C, C is number 1. In the same way that in the key of D, D is number 1. The key of A flat is number 1. All right, so C is number 1. That would make D number 2, and E number 3, and F 4, 5, 6, 7, not 8, that's 1. Again, because we went all the way around. So if you build a chord on the 1, that's the 1 chord. If you build a chord on the 2, that's a 2 chord. And a 3 chord, and a 4 chord, and a 5 chord, and a 6 chord. We're not really going to use the 7 chord because it almost never gets used. So, having said all of that, let's jump in here. We've got our 1 chord, or 2 chord, or 3 chord, or 4 chord, or 5 chord, and our 6 chord. And the first question that we have is, do you want a happy song or a sad song? And this, once again, is like where some people go, I don't know, how am I good? Would a 1 or a 6? Which one should I pick? And then the other people were like, a 1 or a 6? What do you mean? There's like a ton of other chords you could pick. Why not pick a 3? Because I said, just go with me on this. So you got to pick a 1 or a 6. Or if you just can't make up your mind, if you go to learnpianolive.com/songwriting, then you'll get to this page, and it has spinners for all of the decisions that you guys are supposed to make, because I've heard from so many of you who are just really intimidated by making decisions. So here we go. I'm going to write a song randomly to show you how even a random song can sound just fine. This is 6. So first thing is a 6. We're going to put a 6 right there. And as you can see from these arrows here, this 6 is also supposed to come down and be in this circle. And then it's also supposed to come down and be in this circle. And it's also supposed to come down and be in this circle. And it's also supposed to come down and be in this circle. So that 1 6 gets copied into a lot of places, as well as this big diagonal line right here means that it should be going down to there as well. So that's all the places that first chord is going to go. Now, next we need to pick a 1, a 4, a 5, or a 6. So we will once again spin our 1, 4, 5, 6 wheel, and we come up with a 1. So this one is going to be a 1. The next one is going to be a 4. Fantastic. And these also are going to get copied according to the arrows. So you can see these blue arrows are saying that this 1 is supposed to come down here and be right there, which means it also should be right there. Cool. And then this 4 here is supposed to get copied according to the blue arrow down into there, and that's a 4. And then also copied down to there. And then we only have a couple things left. This one right here, a 1, a 4, a 5, or a 6. Let's go with another one. A number 1. And that one should get copied down into that circle right there. And all we have left is a few more of these 1, 4, 5s, or 6s, and we're almost done with our song. Here we go. This is a 6. So this one's going to be a 6. We'll put that 6 right there. And then the next one's going to be 6 again. Really? Okay. And then the next one's going to be 4. We had a 6 and then a 4. 6 and then a 4. 6 and then a 4. Fantastic. Here we're going to put 6 right there and 6 right there, because those are coming down from those orange spots. And I think that's the whole entire song. So now we have places where we're going to play, for example, a 6 chord. So play that 6 chord right there, and we're going to play it for 4 beats. We'll talk more about time signatures here in a little bit, but first thing you got to do is just hang on to that one for 4 beats, because there's a 4 on top there, and that means that you're going to hold it for 4 clicks. 1, 2, 3, 4 before moving on to the next chord, which is a 1 chord. 2, 3, 4, and then a 4 chord. 1, 2. Well, I'm starting to play the song now. So one last thing before I play the song, because you're going to notice, hey, I'm not, when it's the time for a 1 chord, sometimes I'm playing something like this or like that, and I'm switching it up on you. I'm not really. That's a 1 chord because it's built on the 1 of C, which is C. But that also is a 1. In fact, let's go all to numbers here, like this. There we go. In the key of C, that's a 1, and that's a 1, and that's a 1. So I can build a chord on any of those, and it's still a 1 chord. Because notes repeat over and over on the piano. So that's a 1 chord, and that's a 1 chord, and that's a 1 chord, and that's a 1 chord, that's a 1 chord, that's a 1 chord. So if I say I'm playing a 1 chord, you just gotta trust me, I'm playing a 1 chord. Even if I'm playing something like that, that's still a 1 chord, because it's the every other note starting on the 1. All right, so now that you know that I'm not actually tricking you, I'm going to play what we came up with randomly here. On your mark, get set. It's supposed to be a sad song. Sounds like kind of happy. Here we go. And here's our verse. And here's our chorus. And then I'm going to play the chorus again right there. Chord is a 6. That sounds like that could be a song. You could totally write a song that was a melody that went along with that. So that's our Instapop song, and it works so far every single time that we've done this. This has worked just about exactly that well. So yeah. And yep. All right, hang on. Here we go. Okay, sorry about that. So that is all of the chords that you need for your Instapop song, and that always works because that follows all of the rules. And so now, for all of you creative types, we are going to find out what all those rules are that we can perhaps maybe break, bend, change, at least understand. So here's the more random song. First thing is, we talked about how the key of C is all white notes. Well, there are other keys that have other notes in them. So, well, let's pick one here. We could pick any one of these 12 keys that we want, or if we want to, we could just go to our key picker and let it decide for us. And it picks the key of D. So we're gonna go to here and find out what in the world the key of D is. This is the key of D major right here, which just means that this note, which is a D, is gonna be our number 1. And so now it's gonna look a little something like this. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. So we still the same rules apply as always. We're gonna have the 1 chord would be every other note in the key starting on 1. So that one, not the next note, but the next note. And not the next note, but the next note. So every other note in the key starting on that number. So that would be our 1 chord. That would be our 2 chord, because every other note in the key starting on the 2. Our 3 chord, our 4 chord, our 5 chord, our 6 chord, our 7 chord, and then we back to our 1 chord. And this takes a lot of practice, which is why I would totally recommend with my asterisk right here that unless you really feel compelled to do otherwise, you stay in the key of C, because the key of C is going to be the easiest one for pianists, because we get to just play all white notes. But our random key picker said we're going to be in the key of D now. So now we've just got to reorient the 1 chord, the 4 chord, the 5 chord, the 6 chord. Okay, so then now we're in the key of D, and let's find out what else we could tweak besides the key. The time signature. So in most cases, almost 100% of music that you'll hear is in 4/4 time, which Like I said before, it just means you're counting to 4 before you're changing chords, before you're changing measures. So that would be something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. But you wouldn't necessarily have to count to 4. Sometimes people just count to 3. And so that would be something like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Or if you count to 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you could have all kinds of different numbers. Usually that number is going to stay the same throughout the entire song though. So an entire song will be in 4, or an entire song will be in 3, or an entire song will be in 6. Okay, cool. So then we're supposed to use this thing here to, oops, that was the key picker, to pick our time signature. I'm really hoping it picks 4, and it does not, of course. It picks 6, 8, so I'm going to have to find a way to get our well, maybe I'll just use this metronome. The time signature picker says we're going to be in 6. So our whole thing, we're going to be counting to 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, or whatever our chords are. Okay, that's in 6. Bummer. Then the tempo, the speed of this thing is just going to be one of those numbers. 120 is like a pretty common thing, but this one's going to be at 95. So that means that, let me get my metronome out here. 95 sounds like this. So this can be really slow. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Cool. So we're at 95. Again, this is all totally random. I've got preferences on these things that I want to pick some things instead of other things. But for right now, I just want to show you that this can be just totally random and still work out. 95 is the number that we're going for now because it's we're going to go with because that's what the tempo picker picked for us. And then we need to pick a feel. So there's 2 feels. There's going back to 4/4 time. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and there's like little tiny sub-beats, subdivisions in between each beat, and those can either be evenly spaced, like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and where there's the number, the 1, is the same size as the and, the subdivision. Or there's swung, where the number is significantly larger than the and. In fact, exactly twice as big. So 2 is that big, and then this and is really tiny in here. So all the ands are really short. So instead of 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and there's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and so this is swung, and that's straight. Or maybe those both sound the same to you. But I'm going to intervene here and say that we're going to play this one all straight, partially because we picked a 6, which we'll learn about later why we would do that. But we're going to go with straight here, and I'm going to act like I'm picking it randomly. And hey, it picked straight for me. So far, it actually is random. And then this is the part that usually takes the majority of the time to talk about. So the sections that we have. The intro, the verse, the chorus, the pre-chorus, the bridge, the interlude, the ending. Basically, here's what you need to know. You've got to play something, and then you got to play something else. And then you have to stop playing. Those are kind of the 3 non-negotiables of a song. You got to do something, then you got to change it, and then you got to stop. Okay, so the first thing that you play, we call that the verse. When you change it, we call that the chorus. And when you stop playing it, then we call that the stop playing it. All right, so those are the only things you absolutely have to have, and of course you can read this page if you want. But if you want to, you could have an intro. So the intro is the thing that you play leading up to the thing that you're going to say. Like, once upon a time. That's an intro. It's not actually the story. It's not what you're going to say. It's just letting everybody know, hey, here comes something that I'm about to say. The pre-chorus, if you want to have one of those, is just something that you, it's not really like the thing that you're saying, and we definitely haven't gotten to the change yet. But it's a thing that's like it's an intermission almost. It's like hey, there's a little break here. This is not the first thing, but we're about to say something different. So that's what a pre-chorus would be. It's not, you can't really be considered part of the chorus, nor can it be considered part of the verse. And then there's the bridge. So the bridge is after the vast majority of songs. They're going to go verse, chorus, verse, chorus, verse, chorus, right? And they're going to go back and forth and do that. A lot of times they'll change the words in the verse, or sometimes they'll change the words in the chorus as well, but the notes are going to all be the same. It's going to go verse, chorus, verse, chorus. Well, people get tired of that. And so the way that we break that up and make that still interesting is by adding in bridges. So a bridge is just something that's dramatically different. It's kind of like the pre-chorus, a little bit, except it usually doesn't come in until after we've already had a couple verses and a couple of choruses, and we're afraid that our audience, quite frankly, is a little bit tired of what we're playing, and so we would just want to break it up a little bit with a bridge. And then the interlude is really the same exact thing as a bridge, only the interlude is going to be, sometimes it can be really short, and oftentimes it's just an instrumental part, so you don't necessarily have any singing during the interlude part. And then there's the ending. There's basically 3 ways to end a song. You can write a piece that is the opposite of an introduction. The end. Cool. That was a really short outro. And they all lived happily ever after. The end. Cool. So that's an outro. It's writing something that is like tells the audience that the song is over. Oftentimes it will also be instrumental. Or if you want to, if you don't want to write something special for the ending, then you could just play the chorus over and over and over again, or just play the bridge over and over again, or just play the verse over and over again, and then record that. And after you've recorded it, go back and just fade out those last choruses until there's no sound left. Or if that sounds like too much work too, you can just stop playing. That's an option. That's what we did on our song up here. On this song, we just hit a 6 chord right there. Bam, that was it. We just played it. And the song was over. So you can't just cut and then you don't have to write an actual outro. By the way, the outros are oftentimes, a lot of times, that's what often means, Jamin. The outros are oftentimes just the intro played over again. So if you write some introduction, then you can just steal that, put it at the very end of the song, and that will sound like an outro. Okay, so then, the thing that we're going to do is go through. I've recommended, once again, that you have multiple verses and choruses. So the things you must have in your song are at least a verse, a chorus, a verse, a chorus, and a chorus. But you have the option to throw in some other parts here. Introductions, pre-choruses, interludes, more pre-choruses before the chorus, a bridge or an interlude, a chorus, and then over here we have either writing an outro or fading or just cutting. Okay, so then you can pick the size that you want down here. I'm highly recommending that on each of these sections you make it some multiple of 4 or 2. No, not some multiple of 2. Either make it 2 or make it some multiple of 4. 4 bars, 8 bars, 12 bars. How long is this thing going to last, this verse? How long is this chorus going to last? These are some of your best options here. Pre-choruses, you don't want those to get too long, so I've kind of give you fewer options on that. Same thing with an interlude. Too long of an interlude is just, it gets too long very easily. Honestly, the verses and the choruses, if you could avoid a 16-bar verse or chorus, that'd be great. Like 8 bars is super duper. 12 is kind of long. 16, you really got to work at that. And then your outro should also be short in the same way that your intro should be short as well. So then you can either pick those things, or if you're in the group that's saying, how do I know what to pick? I don't know how long it should. How long is our intro going to be? Tell us, almighty spinner. 8 bars, really? Really? You pick the biggest one? Fine, whatever. So our intro is going to be 8 bars. Then we have our verse. And our verse is going to be 16 bars. This song is never going to end. Okay, whatever. Our pre-chorus. Please tell me we don't have a pre-chorus. 4 bars. Every single one of these has been as long as possible. Well, at least you'll get to see in this lesson why it is maybe you make things a little bit succinct. Maybe you don't play for as long as you possibly could because people get bored of you. Chorus size, make it short. It almost picked 16. It picked 8. All right, well, that's weird that your chorus is, one of the shortest parts of the song. Whatever. Are we going to have an interlude, almighty spinners? Of course we are. We're going to have a 4-bar interlude. And then we have another verse. Oh my goodness, 16 bars. A pre-chorus of 4 bars. Our chorus of 8 bars. Our bridge or interlude, I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna call it. We're gonna not do that bridge or interlude. We're just gonna play our last chorus right there. And then what kind of an outro do we pick? Just pick end. Please don't pick a long one. Infinite loop and fade. Are you kidding me? Okay, fine. Okay, so we're supposed to fade here. So really, I couldn't have planned this any worse. This is going to be terrible, and we've got a lot of chord picking to do. Let me show you the, well, before I do that. The format. You creative types have lots of questions about the format, and of course you terrified types are terrified. Way to go. You get to keep your job. So then these are just some of the songs. There's only like 20 on here. So this list could obviously be much longer. I did not pick these songs. I only picked these songs because they were some of the highest Google searched artists. And I just took those artists' top songs, listed them on here, and I went through and I said, all right, what do they have in here? Is it intro, verse, chorus, pre-chorus, bridge? What is all it? So these are just the formats for all of the songs here. So this one, as you can see here, is intro, verse, chorus, intro, verse, bridge, chorus, ending, which is like, it seems like, hey, that's creative, except when you take a look at it, it's really just a verse and a chorus, and a verse and a chorus, and then you've got, of course, your intro, and you've got some kind of ending, because you have to have some kind of ending, and then we happen to double up on the verse, and we put in a little something in between each of the verses and chorus, but it's still just verse, chorus, with some fancy decorations in the middle. This one right here, verse, chorus, happens to have an interlude in the middle, and of course it has an ending and it has as a beginning. So it's just verse, chorus. That's the innovation there. Is they did it 3 times instead of 2 times. So you're going to find that as you go through there, that those are all very repetitive, and we'll be making a lesson. Hopefully by the time you get to this PDF, we will have already swapped it out. We'll be changing that for the archives. So we have a lesson, a link up here for formats and song types and stuff like that. So that is already in the works. But having said that, we need to pick chords, and we need to pick a ton of them for this song. We're in the key of D, which means that we need to pick chords from this line right here. The 1 chord is this one, the 2 chord is that one, the 3 chord is F sharp minor, the 4 chord is G, the 5 chord is an A, and the 6 chord is a B minor. All right, so then each of those has their own characteristics that you can get used to hearing those, and eventually you'll have preferences on all those. But as promised, I'm just going to pick them randomly for right now. Let's set out the format of this song again. It's an 8-bar intro. Good heavens. It's in the key of D. The tempo is 95. It's 6/8. Man. And we're going to go straight with this one. Okay, so our intro. This is going to be a long old song, friends. It might be a half hour before we get out of here. 16-bar verse. So that means that's how big the verse is. That's our intro. That's our verse. Our pre-chorus is 4 and our chorus is 8. So this is going to be the pre-chorus is 4 and the chorus is going to be 8. Then did we have anything else? An interlude, of course we have an interlude. So we'll have 4-bar interlude right here. And then we're just supposed to go after that verse, pre-chorus, chorus, and then end it. So we're going to play all the way through all of those chords. Then we're going to go back and we're going to play the verse part again. We'll go through the pre-chorus, we'll go through the chorus, and then we're going to play the chorus again, and then after that, we loop it, and we pretend as if it was all fading out. Okay, ready to pick some chords? Let's pick some chords. We got to pick a zillion of them. You can put more than one chord in a, there we go. You can put more than one chord in a measure. For the purposes of this thing, we're not going to, just to make this kind of simplified, but you absolutely could put in more than one chord per measure. Here we go. I'm going to pick these 4 at a time here. It's going to go 5 chord to 1 chord. So we got 5, 1, 5, 4. 5, 1, 5, 4. Then it's going to go, the next 4 measures are going to go 1 chord to 3 chord. If you're watching this in the archives, you might want to just fast forward. 6 chord, 1, 3, 6, 4. 1, 3, 6, 4. Because I really am just going to do this until we have all these filled in. We're just going to pick chords randomly. Okay. The first. 2 chord to 2 chord to 1 chord to 2 chord. 2, 2, 1, 2, I think is what I said. That's a really interesting verse. 1 chord to 1 chord. Man. To a 3 chord. 1, 1, 3, 1. Man. Wow. 1, 1, 3, 1. Okay, so 2, 2, 1, 2, and then 1, 1, 3, 1. That's weird. Fortunately, we have 8 bars to redeem ourselves here, since this verse is so long. 5, 2, 2, 1. 5, 2, 2, 1. Last 4 of the verse. This verse just does not go away. A 1 to a 6, 1, 6. 5, 3. What did I just say? 6, 5, 1, 3? Sure. 6, 5, 1, 3. No, that was probably not what it was, but I don't remember. That sounds random to me. 1 chord. 1 to a 5, 1, 5, 4, 1, 5, 4, 6. Is our pre-chorus. 1, 5, 4, 6. 6, 1, 6, 6, 1. Oh, interesting. 6, 1, 6, 1. We're almost there, folks. We only have 8 of them left. 5 to a 5, 5, 5. 2, 5, 5, 2, 4. And then we go down to our interlude. We need a 5 to a 1, 5, 1. 1, 5, 1, 1, 2, 5, 1, 1, 2. All right, so once again, let me remind you, the goal of all of this is to get you to try to dive in and experiment with this stuff and experience this stuff and notice what sounds like what when you put those different parts in. What does a 6/8 feel like? What does it feel like to have something such as low tempo? You're about to find out what the torture is when you've got a 16-bar verse and you're going at such a slow pace that your song just lasts forever. Things like that are all great things to notice. So I'm going to try to play through this thing, and we're going to go at that pace, 6 beats per measure. And like I said before, you'll see me playing notes that it seems like I'm not playing the chord when really I am. So for example, this is a 1 chord. This is a 1 chord. If you pay attention to my lowest note, that'll give you a hint as to what chord I'm playing, because in almost every case, I'm going to play the number of the chord down here. So on a 1 chord, I'll be playing a 1. If I'm playing a 2 chord up here, I'll be playing a 2 down here. So if you just pay attention to the lowest note, then you can keep me honest here. But let's try this thing. We're going to start with an intro, and I'm also, we'll keep it here for now. I I can play up to there, and you can see it down to there. Yeah, we should be fine. Here we go. Here's our verse. Pre-chorus. And here's our chorus. Here's our interlude. And here's our verse again. Second half of the verse, I'm on the 5 chord, 5 chord. Here's our pre-chorus. And here comes the chorus. In fact, in most cases, the fade out, the loop and fade thing, you actually play louder and louder and louder. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger, even though the volume is going down, the intensity is growing. And so I kind of did the opposite of that. I tried to like fake it on my instrument by like repeating and fading it manually, which just kind of decreases the intensity of the whole thing. That was a lot of chords, and I don't think any of it sounded particularly terrible. It just sounded a bit meandering because we had random chords in a random order over a random form in a random key so that's worst case scenario right there. And I've done lots of these. Trust me, that's worst case scenario, that you would write a song that sounded like that, which just kind of sounds melancholy and meandering. It doesn't necessarily sound like a bad song. Okay, cool. So we stayed in the key, we played all that stuff, and then from that point, we would play that several times. We would play that several times. Whatever you write out, play it several times, because the first time you play it through, especially if you are doing it based on like just randomness and you're not doing it because, oh, I'd really like a 4 chord there, or I think I'd really like a 1 chord there, then that's going to sound weird to you for the first time. So I'd want to play that back, and probably certain sections of it the first time through like felt like, I didn't like that at all. Second, third time, I might actually warm up to it and go, oh, that kind of works. But there are still going to be parts of your song like it just doesn't work. Very, very rarely, like 1 in a million times, you're going to have a song that you get to the end of it and you're like, yeah, that was totally it. That's what I was going for. So there's always going to be stuff in there that you kind of want to tweak, that you want to change. So here are the guides for tweaking things according to the rules. Of course, you don't have to follow any of the rules. You can be a total creative type and just make the most amazing, most creative song ever. But I would recommend, if you've got a problem, use these common tools first. So first thing is, if you got a 1 chord and you don't like it very much, try a 6 chord in its place. Or if that doesn't work out, try a 4 chord in its place. Or try a 3 chord in its place. So literally, like if you have one of these up here that you just don't like. For example, let's say I don't like this one right here. This guy right here. It's too much 1 chord there. Then I could get rid of that one and just put a 6 there instead. And that would likely sound better. It will at least sound different. It will start messing with that little section that you didn't like. So now, instead of having a 1 chord there for two measures, so instead of having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, right? It just feels like too much 1. Now I have some movement in there. I've got a 1 to a 6 to a 3. 1, 2, 3. Kind of like that, actually. That kind of works for me. So the 6 to the 3 instead solves my problem of that 1 just hanging out too long and feeling awkward. So you can do the same thing with a 2 chord or a 3 chord or a 4 chord or a 5 chord or a 6 chord. You could just have other options there. This one you will see several times, this whole thing with the slash on it. What I told you before was whatever chord I'm playing up here, if I'm playing 1 chord, I'm going to be playing 1 chord down here. Well, that's not always true. In some cases, when you have a slash, just think of that as like a fraction, like 1 over 3. So then that means that the 1 is the chord that you're playing on the top in your right hand, and the 3 is the part that you're playing in your left hand on the bottom. Cool. Unfortunately, that makes sense that way, but the way the computer types it out, of course, is like that. The fraction is 1 over 3, which puts the 1 on the left side, which is weird because that's what you're supposed to do with your right hand. And then it puts the 3 on the right side, which is what you're supposed to do with your left hand. So it looks backwards from the way it's supposed to be. So you, like in your mind, just turn it to a regular fraction. You got the top part, and the bottom part. There we go. So that's a 1 over 3, or a slash chord. You can slash anything. You can play a 1 over a 3, or a 5 or a 7, or a 4 over 6, or a whatever over whatever. Okay, cool. Then after you've tried those all out and you're still feeling creative, then you can start messing with these guys here. And this is all of the like the really weird substitutions that usually don't work out. For example, if you've got a little m, like that one right there, that means that the chord that is listed, the 1 chord, for example, is actually a major chord. But in this case, you'd make that chord minor. You try a minor 1. Try the minor 5 first. if you don't. Yeah. Try the minor 5 first. But then you could try a minor 1 there and see in place of the 1 chord. Or if you have a 4 that you're not particularly fond of, then you could try a minor 4 in place of that, or a major 2. So let's try one of those. Do we have a 4? Surely we have a 4. We have every kind of chord in here. Yeah, so here we go. So minor. Ooh, let's do this one right here. I'm cheating right now. I know what this is going to sound like ahead of time. So sorry, I didn't choose this 4 randomly, but the 4 was chosen randomly before. So this is kind of random-ish. So right here, instead of playing a regular 4, we're going to play a minor 4. So then before the end of our chorus, starting at the 5 chord right there, it was... our 4 chord. Cool. But this time, I'm going to take that 4 chord and I'm going to lower this note. I'm going to make it a minor 4 with that one right there. And that's going to sound like this. So first we hear like, oh, he messed up. Wait, no, he's still holding that chord. Oh, actually, that kind of sounds cool. So some of those uncommon substitutions, some of those weird substitutions can actually end up being really cool chords and some really cool parts of your song. But I just use them sparingly because they're all super duper weird. And then after that, there's still more messing around to be done. So for example, something you could do here is chords. Some of the chords are weirder than others. For example, I told you already, 7 chords are just, there's almost no point in trying to incorporate them into your song. A 7 chord is just always going to sound funky. So that's like the least safe chord that you could have. But the 1 chord, you play the 1 chord all day long in whatever key, and it's always going to sound, it might not sound pretty or great, but it's always going to sound safe. It's never going to feel like that like weird like that sound of like what song is this? It's always okay. Yeah, I'm bored, but I know what to expect. This normal regular chord. The other ones, the later ones, like the 3 and the 7 and sometimes the 2, those are less safe. So if you want to just stick with chords that you know are going to sound good, stick with these 4 right here. That's why in the Instapop song, the very first thing we did, we used all 1, 4, 5, and 6 chords. They're the safest chords. They're going to sound great all the time. Cool. Then ending chords in order of safeness would be the 1. So it's really preferred that you end your song on a 1 chord. But if not, you could end your song on a 4 chord or a 6 chord or a 2 chord. If you really wanted to, you could end on a 7 chord. I can't think of a single song that I've played that ends on a 7 chord. That'd be really super, super weird. And I know how to play at least a couple songs, and none of them end on 7. Safest chord movements here. If you're on a 3, the safest place to go is a 6. If you're on a 6, the safest place to go is a 2. So this is just you like the chord that you're on, but you just don't know what transition to go to, what the next chord is. You know, you don't like the one that shows up in the chord in the song, so you want to change it a bit. But I'm on a 3 chord, and the next one, like, I just don't like where it goes. It goes to a 1 chord. It just doesn't feel right. Well, try going to a 6 chord. And that's almost always going to feel pretty safe. So all of these movements here are equally safe. So if you're on a 3, going to a 6 is the same amount of safeness as if you're on a 2 and you go to a 5. Okay, then this next section is the opposite of that. Instead of I like the chord that I'm on, but I don't like the one it goes to. Now you're in the situation where, well, I like the chord that it goes to, but I don't like the one that it comes right before it. Like that transition doesn't fit, but I don't want to change the second chord. I want to change the first one. Well, if you're about to go to a 1 chord, the safest, the most compelling thing to do is to play a 4/5. So a 4 chord, where you've got a 5 in the bass. There's almost nothing in music more compelling than that. Or you could play a 5 chord. If you don't like that, you just go straight 5 to 1. That's going to be a pretty compelling move. or try going from a 4 to 1 or a 2 to 1. All right, so then same exact thing for the rest of these chords. If you're about to go to a 4 chord, but you don't know what chord to use to transition into it, then you can try some of these in that list. And then if you're about to go to a 5 chord, then you precede it with one of those chords. If you're about to go to a 6 chord, try preceding it with one of those. And the last two things are your verses your bridges and your pre-choruses should usually start on and use the less used chords. So we talked before about using 1, 4, 5, and 6 because those are all safe almost always. Well, if you got a bridge in there or a pre-chorus, it's a great time to like throw in a 2 chord or a 3 chord there, especially to start out with. That's gonna sound probably pretty super cool. And then extending your verses, choruses, or especially the pre-choruses, especially pre-choruses bridges. Maybe you should say or there. So especially your pre-choruses and your bridges, but also your verses and your choruses, just extending those by a bar, maybe putting in a different chord there, but not just going with the number of measures that I recommended, but going with that number +1 or that number +2 would help increase some anticipation, some tension there. So for example, if we got to the end of this thing right here, at the end of the chorus, and I was going to go back into the chorus, but instead of just going 5, 5, and then going back into it, if I'd extended that minor 4, 2, 3, 4, man, that's slow. So here's our 5. Go back into the chorus after that, making that longer. When the rest of the song is in those nice chunks of 4 or 8 or 12 or 16, and then you take one of those and you play the regular 8 or the regular 12 or whatever, and then you just extend it by a bar or 2. It just creates some really delicious anticipation there. Then, last thing, tomorrow we're going to be talking about the melody, writing the melody over top of all this, because it's all just chords so far. But this last thing is, if you have a bass player playing with you, when they write songs, they're thinking, well, about the bass line, which should be expected. So they're not thinking nearly as much about what chord am I going to? Is it 6 chord? Is it 4 chord? They're just thinking about like how far away from this note that I'm on do I have to go? On the piano, the bass player is your left hand. So we got a 1. Well, a 1 conveniently moves to a 2 or to a 7. Not so much to a 4. A 1 to a 4. A 1 to a 4. You got to jump big jumps right there. It's really inconvenient. So, if you got a bass player, your bass player is mostly going to be thinking about how can I make the smallest moves possible. Well, if you just think that way as a bass player, instead of worry about what all the chords are and stuff, you just think, all right, well, what would I want to do if I was a bass player? Right? I want to go from there to there to there to there to there to there to there. That could totally be a song. Or if you want to go up instead of down. Right, so these bass movements now have totally changed everything about the song. In fact, I cheated. I lied to you. I didn't know that I was going to be lying to you, but I told you that I was going to play just the chords that were listed in there. It turns out that it was so long and so boring, and all of the stuff in the song just took so long to play. There were some places I just felt like I had to do some kind of movement. So in the case of this one right here, going from a 6 to a 4, well, there's a 5 in the middle. And my left-hand bass player is like 6 and 4. You got to be kidding me. I'm not going to walk through that 5. Of course I'm going to walk through that 5 to get to it. So instead of just playing what I was supposed to, which was 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In some cases, I slipped and I accidentally played the one that was in between. So if once your left hand starts thinking about it as a bass player, then you're going to come up with all kinds of really cool movements and much smoother transitions between your chords and things. And then, I know you're thinking, well, I can do that, but that's fine. But like some of those notes aren't even in the scale. And then like you told me not to play a 7. What's up with that? Like now I'm playing a 7, so I'm supposed to play a 7 chord? That sounds horrible. No. You could play a 7 chord, or if you want to, if your left hand is playing a 7, then you could your right hand could play a 5 chord. So I'd have 1 to a 5 chord over 7. That sounds pretty. Or I could play a 3 chord. Are there any other options? I could play a 1 chord, yeah. That doesn't sound as great unless it's in context. So if I did something. Something like that. So I can get away with 1 chord. So again, the farther to the right you go on these options, the weirder they get and the harder you're gonna have to work to make them actually work out. But you've got a chord that works for every single one of the notes, like every single note you could play, there's a chord somewhere in that key or just outside of that key that would totally work for that thing. So start thinking like a bass player and you'll end up coming up with much, much cooler things. Walk-ups and walk-downs, that's just where you're, like I said, you've got maybe a 1 chord and it's going to a 3 chord. So you just walk through that too like you would, like I did accidentally right there. So then you maybe put a 2 chord in there. That would be cool instead of. So I think that's the last one. I've given you all of the rules and I've given you lots of options of how to break down the rules. And this thing is constantly, this worksheet, as all of our worksheets, are constantly being changed. So if you've got great ideas about how I can fix that up and make that even better for next time, then maybe it's one of the suggestions we're already working on, but probably not. I'd appreciate if you let me know. And then you join us again next time when it is changed, or join us tomorrow for the melody writing section where we basically do the same thing, only now we're just focusing on what is the note that you would sing if you were a singer, if you want to write a song. And then the day after that, we're going to be doing the lyrics with hopefully Kendra joining us again for that, so we can talk about what to do when you're writing lyrics for a song. And then you got the chords, you got the melody, you got the lyrics. That's the whole entire thing. So until next time, I love ya. Good luck. Have fun.